welcome once again to Senior Focus. I'm your host, Bill Adams. Senior Focus is a show designed for adults over the age of about 50 or so. And we come to you with a guest from Mahoning County to talk about programs and services that are available. And before we get started with today's show, I wanted to thank Greg Roten. He is with Armstrong's Channel 20 and 100. Greg brings a program to you every week. And if you happen to miss any of the programs, Greg also puts those up on YouTube. So you could just go to YouTube and type in Senior Focus and Armstrong Cable, and that should bring up the list of shows. We just want to let you know that we're at the Ursuline Center today. And we did a show a year or so ago about some of the services that the Ursuline Center provides. And maybe later on we could just mention again what's here and maybe a contact. But today we have a special program with Sister Jerome Corcoran and also Maraline Kubik, and they're with Sister Jerome's mission, or Mission College specifically. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And actually, before we get started, I also wanted to say you just had a milestone, I believe, a birthday. So happy birthday. We're a little bit late, but
always good.
And I think you were also just recently had an honor with the Ohio Senior Citizen Hall of Fame.
Yes, that was lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Mm-hmm.
Well, we could talk, again, maybe a little bit more about that day, but why don't we, at the top, if either one of you want to just sort of give a thumbnail sketch about what the Mission College is.
Well, Sister Jerome's Mission College was a wonderful idea Sister Jerome had about 4 years ago to help students from low-income families make it through to college graduation. And the program pairs them with a mentor and helps them overcome a multitude of challenges that these students encounter. Most of them challenges that students from middle-class families never even think about.
Oh.
Never have to think about.
Yeah. Well, can you talk about the beginning or the genesis of the idea for this? How did this come about?
Me?
Yes. Well, it was your idea, I think, originally. So.
Yes. Well, anything with me has a long history because I've been around a while. But my major focus has always been education, and for years and years. And as I moved from one level to another level, age-wise in education, I could see that the children really, from lower-income families, really needed something extra special. What was available was good, but they had these problems of not having enough to eat, not even having shoes to come to school and things like that. So way back in 1976, the city asked me to head up their preschool program.
Right. Okay.
And so I said, no. But then after a while I said yes, and I'm so glad I said yes. Millcreek Children's Center in 1976 was for preschool children ages 3 and 4 from lower income working families. And that has always been my special focus because working families absolutely have to have good child care. So that was 1976. So as I worked with the children, I could see when their parents came to pick them up that the parents were rushing from a job and they always kind of looked worried. And then I found out that a lot of them needed a GED. I thought, oh my, of course. And the ones in nursing especially, they could not keep their job now without a GED. So I got some volunteers and we started a GED program in the evenings. Lovely volunteers. They worked all day at their regular job, and then 2 nights a week they came and help the students with the GED, and that was most interesting. So these volunteers for 10 years came 2 nights a week, and they taught the parents of the children. But the children were there because the parents didn't have babysitters. So again, I was seeing children disadvantaged, but with their parents. And so in 100 years, it just now seems impossible. But we graduated 100 with the GED at no cost to them. We had a graduation, wedding-like reception with gifts, piled high and all of that. So my education took those turns. And then in Millcreek Children's Center for the little children of working poor parents, I had a great teacher myself when I was at Case Western Reserve. And if you can imagine, in the 1950s, this lady was talking about literacy. Literacy. We could hardly spell it. Anyway, she so imbued me with the necessity to get every child where the child is developmentally and then address those needs. Sure, you have 50 children, but you got them one at a time, and you see that they go over this hump and that hump. And we were rated excellent by the state of Ohio, if you can imagine. So that's my background. So I was at Millcreek with those darling, darling children and darling parents for 36 years. And when I left Millcreek, I was, I guess I was 96, yes. I was 96 years old, and I'd had my 96th birthday, but 6 candles, not 96. So I was still imbued with education, and I could see that the little children we had coming to our place, they got, a nourishing breakfast and an appetizing lunch and a good snack before they went home. But they had utility problems at home and eviction problems and the ever-present, recently, drug problems.
Sure.
So when I left Millcreek, I was still thinking education and the poor. So I started a program called Sister Jerome's Poor in 2012. Yeah, 2012.
Just about 4 years ago, yeah.
And so I had left Millcreek, and I came to the center, and Sister Nancy Dawson was the superior at the time. She was very interested in education herself. She teaches at YSU. So I started the program with 2 objectives: to help working poor parents meet emergencies, financial, and secondly and equally, to help these little kids I had when they were 3 and 4. And Youngstown Community School, we established a charter school because and that was rated excellent too. We just had all these things going for us. So it was in the interest of remembering those children and how apt and attentive they were, how successful, how they wanted to learn. We selected some of those children after they had made a choice to go to college. We didn't recruit kids to get to college. They were already there. And we knew really they needed 2 things mainly. One was they needed help with what we call living expenses, like gas for the car, boots in winter, a jacket maybe, food on campus, living expenses. So we knew if we helped them with that, they would be encouraged more to keep up their education and keep on going.
Right.
And we also knew at that time that even when the students lived at home, they still sometimes needed more than just the Pell Grant.
And Maraline, you come in because you recently started overseeing this year, is that right?
Sister
Yeah.
Jerome retired earlier
I retired
this year.
at age 99.
She officially retired. She's still very much involved, but she officially retired And we are continuing on that good work. And one of the things Sister didn't mention is what we provide for students one-on-one is a mentor, so that they have someone who actually guides them through the higher education system. Because most of these kids, as Sister mentioned, come from homes where the parents do not have college educations. Sometimes the students that we're working with are the first to graduate from high school.
Oh, boy.
So they don't have anyone to give them very basic information about course selections or making sure they get the right courses so that they fulfill all of the requirements for their major as well as their minors. They need help maybe learning what they should be asking their instructors if they're having difficulty, learning to say, are there opportunities for extra credit? Some of them are intimidated by the instructors because they haven't dealt one-on-one with someone who is of that caliber. So we help them with that, help them learn how to navigate the higher education system so that they are able to do it, able to be successful. We help them understand the importance of keeping a good GPA, not only because their future employers will be looking at that, but because if their GPA is high enough, that might make them eligible for scholarships.
Sure.
And if they're eligible for scholarships, they have to borrow less money, which means less money they have to repay.
Now, we'll do this later too, but at this point, could you give out contact information for
Sure.
people who are interested in contacting?
We are always looking for mentors, and the requirement is very simple. They need to have been through college themselves, so they need to have a 4-year degree. It can be in any field. It might help if they've had a little bit of experience mentoring someone, or if they're a parent and they've helped guide their own child. But they can give us a call at 330-259-8765.
And this is, I guess, one of the main reason I wanted to talk with you both is to try to get the word out. And I would think that people over 50 would be, prime candidates to possibly become mentors. Because again, if you've been through college, as you said, and maybe the college system and what's required to obtain that degree, you have that life wisdom
Yes.
that I think you're seeking, right?
Yes, if you have that life wisdom, and maybe you have experience with younger people. If you're a parent, if you're a grandparent,
And
you know what it's
church.
like. Yes, and church.
Many have
Yes.
church experience.
So you know innately what a younger person needs and how they need to be guided through something that they're so unfamiliar with.
Like anything, we had to learn as we went because we didn't know for sure what they didn't know.
Sure.
And so it was slow at first. But after we got into it a little bit, we could see some of the things Maraline was saying. A student would be struggling in a class, and actually the poor are not used to being accepted with their problems. They kind of have to be quiet in the background and cooperate and don't interfere. That's often true. The poor really are not accepted like fully as they need to be. So in early days, Sister Mary Dunn and I did all the mentoring, and we just loved the kids because we knew them anyhow from the past. They had a little strike against them because we knew their parents.
Okay.
And so in the beginnings then, we did, Sister Mary and I did the mentoring ourselves. And that's how we found out how many, many needs they have. And that there's the high income and then there's the low income. And even though the people who have helped me for over 50 years, really, I've been begging, they're nice people, but they have to be people with money.
Sure. Yeah.
So I've learned how they operate and how they feel and what they like to know about the money they invest. And so Maraline and I can now tell them the living expenses, and sometimes a person who has never had any financial difficulty, and that's a lot of people, don't know what it's like not to have money to put gas in the car, for example.
Sure.
So I've appreciated very much the people who have helped us financially. And the poor are not accustomed to being accepted, certainly not welcome, even by a structured society like ours. So one of the things we're doing is helping them to know what they're about, know what their goals are like, know how they're progressing, know who's helping them. And we always tell them when we help them with living expenses, say a prayer for the person who sent this money. They are helping you. They could help a lot of other good causes, but they're helping you. So you say a prayer for them. And since we'll be talking maybe largely to seniors, maybe, I ask you to help us, especially with prayer. Almost everybody now and then can slip in a prayer. So we'd appreciate your prayers for every one of these kids and for Maraline and for me as I flit in and out. Prayers as, who was the great guy who said it? I'll think of it later, a half an hour later. But he said, this was Dr. Siegel. More good is wrought by prayer than this world dreams of.
I was just trying to put myself back in college, in my college days, and what it's like, again, obviously no one's ever been to college before, that's number one, so it's a new experience. But especially if you have to worry about finances. And the other thing is, I think, again, thinking back to my own experiences, if you haven't had someone in the family close to you that has gone, who do you talk to if you have questions or you're concerned about classes? You just want to talk to someone.
And
so that's what the mentors do. Yeah.
One of the things that we realize is that these kids don't even know what they don't know. They don't know what to ask. So they need someone who is perceptive enough to guide them through that experience, filling them in on what they need to do. You need to make an appointment with your advisor so that you can register for the classes that you need. You need to look at the catalog and see which classes are actually required for your major. The mentor might need to explain the difference between a class that is a requirement, a class that is an elective, and a class that has a prerequisite. These are, even the terminology is new for most of these kids. We've had kids come in who think that they need to know from day one exactly what it is they want to do. They don't realize that they can go in without declaring a formal major. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about our two graduates who we are very proud of. We had our first two four-year graduates. Sister Jerome has had a few who have graduated with 2-year associate degrees, but our first two 4-year graduates graduated from YSU this May. One has a degree in biology. She has done very well. Great GPA. She had straight A's her last semester.
Wow.
She does plan to continue and go on for further education. She's had a few job offers. She is working in her field. The other one has a degree in communications, and her goal is to work in broadcast journalism, which both of you are familiar with.
You know how that is.
Sure.
And she is also working, not in her dream job yet, but I have no doubt that she will eventually get there and will be very successful. And we have kids in our program who are on track to graduate with 4-year degrees in each of the next 3 years. And as we mentioned at the top of the program, we are looking for mentors because we want to grow the program. We have lots of kids who have applied, so we're hoping that we add a few every semester so that we have kids graduating consistently, which means we are breaking that cycle of generational poverty, one child, one family at a time.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's, that is the key thing, I think, of the program, not only for the individuals involved, their benefit, but our community's benefit. If you think of the difference between someone who doesn't, say, even get the GED or their high school education, and their prospects financially and their ability to be a taxpayer versus someone with a college education. I mean, the statistics, I'm sure you know, are there, where the folks that you're helping, once they get through the program and they graduate, they're going to be able to contribute so much more to our community.
Contribute to the community and build it up for everyone. Youngstown is the poorest large city in America. The poorest city in America that has a population over 65,000.
Wow.
We're used to seeing things about Detroit, but Youngstown is poorer than Detroit, and there's only one way to change that, and that is to break that cycle of generational poverty so that people are employable, they can earn a decent living. Sister Jerome mentioned that we're assisting working poor families. So it's not people who aren't working. They're people who are working very, very hard, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, but not making enough to provide the basic necessities for their families. So what we want to do is get these children, young adults, students, to the point where they are able to be self-sufficient. And then they can support any dependents they may have and hopefully recognize the value of education so that they educate their own children, and then succeeding generations will be employable at jobs that pay a living wage. And we know right now unemployment in Youngstown is very high.
And it's higher than the statistics show.
But we
Right.
also know
They're not
that
counted.
there are jobs available, but there aren't people with those skills. So what we are trying to do is help these students acquire those skills so they can get a job and become employed and productive members of the community.
And related to what Maraline just said, I have a good many people who are very comfortably fixed financially because I beg from them. And we have a nice relationship. I know the joke goes around, here comes Sister Jerome, hold your wallet. And it's just a joke, it isn't true. It is not true. But along with that, one of the major criticisms of the poor is, well, I think people aren't thinking of poor so much as that group out there that, like, they're not in jobs that I recognize, or they don't go to the club I go to or whatever, and they really don't know the other people, the ones we're serving.
We have a few minutes to go, but if people are interested in being a mentor, why don't we remind folks of how they could go about contacting you and what the next step is?
They can give us a call at 330-259-8765. We'll call them in for an interview, look over their resume, see why they would be interested in mentoring, what their background and experience is, and then we're also planning to have a little bit of a training session, actually more of an informational session, where all of the mentors will come together, and Sister Mary Dunn and Sister Jerome will talk with them about the process that they have gone through mentoring each of these students. Because it's not just a matter of talking to each student. We actually bring them into our office twice a year at the end of each semester. We look over their grades, we look over their classes for the following schedule, and then we look over their financial aid, because we don't want them to have any surprises. And kids on financial aid, depending on where they're going to school and whether they're enrolled full-time or part-time, their Pell Grant may be covering everything. More likely than not, it is not covering everything. So they need to know what they're going to owe and where that money is going to come from. We want to make sure that they're fully aware of that. There are also repercussions. If they would withdraw from a class, they can lose some of their grant money. So we need to know that they understand how much they're going to owe at the end of the semester, if they're going to owe anything, and have a plan in place so that they're able to pay those bills. Because one very important component of our program is that they are financially responsible. We don't want them graduating with tons of student debt that they can't repay.
$100,000.
Oh, which is, not uncommon,
It's common.
Yeah.
180 is a little uncommon.
Well, we only have a couple minutes to go, but, you gave some, would you mind, I think you had a statistic of Of the number of people, it was minority folks?
Yes. This statistic was published in the JAMBAR and of Youngstown State University, and it's corroborated by their evidence. Why don't they get an education? My kids went to school. In Youngstown, the JAMBAR reports, of the total enrollment a couple of years ago, only 15% were minorities. Now, in Youngstown, 50% of the population is minority. But YSU had a 15% minority enrollment. But the worst statistic of all, and this is why we want to do this work well, of that 15% minorities, only 15% graduated 4 years. 15%, it's something like 200 kids. That's all that graduated in that year from Youngstown State University, and that's typical.
Mhm. Well, again, that kind of points out the need for your mission college. And again, we've been talking with Sister Jerome Corcoran and also Maraline Kubik, who are, this is actually housed at the Ursuline Center. I just want to let you know, if you want information on the Ursuline Center in general and all of the programs, including Sister's mission, it's 330-799-4941. Again, you've been watching. Thank you very much for coming. I didn't want to
Thank you
forget
for
about that.
inviting us.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry we only had 30 minutes, but we could have talked longer. But again, you've been watching Senior Focus. I'm your host, Bill Adams. Thank you to Greg Roten from Armstrong's Channel 20 and 100. Again, if you missed any of the show, you can go on YouTube and just type in Senior Focus and Armstrong Cable, and it has a list of shows that are available to re-look at. Until next time, thanks for watching.